Krueger joins us, brought to you by Rise Above Foundation. Go visit nativeyouthriseabove.org. I'm sad. I said this to Jim Duquette the other day, Bill. Baseball season, at least it looks like for the M's, is winding down. So that means our visits are winding down. And I don't like it because I love talking baseball with you. You make me smarter. You push me. It's great. And I think our audience has, and I'll speak for our audience, I think our audience has enjoyed this year with you. It's been a little bit more Bill Krueger unfiltered, and I like that. I like that from Bill Krueger this year. Let's jump right into it. I want to first start because you love talking pitching. Let's talk about Bryce Miller. I mean, 12-8 now with an ERA of 2.94. What a great sophomore season for Bryce Miller.
He came on last year as, kind of an untested, not the number one draft pick like Kirby or Gilbert, and got his call up, and he was a guy with a real easy fastball that he was able to throw at the top of the zone and beat people with it. And then as the season wore on, the league caught up to him a little bit, and he began to realize that he had some deficiencies. Most young pitchers don't solve deficiencies quite as quick as Bryce Miller has. He developed a split finger that probably tops the staff. I mean, I would argue that it's better than Gilbert's because he can throw it for a strike. Or Gilbert can't throw his for a strike. So he's got an edge. He's really made this pitch a weapon. I mean, lefties hit over 300 off them last year, and they're hitting about 200 this year. That's a huge difference for him because he really struggled last year, the second half of the year, handling left-hand hitters. The other thing he's done, he's developed a two-seam fastball that he's throwing about 20% of the time, and he's able to command both sides of the plate. Plus, he's refined his breaking stuff a little bit, throwing the slider a little less, throwing his curveball a little bit more. Sometimes it gets a little swervy. But as you saw last night, that was a great example of the additional weapons that Bryce Miller has developed because he threw his fastball just barely 50% of the time, and he's over 60% every game. So he leaned hard on his off-speed stuff, and boy, he dominated the Astros last night and really clutched up in the seventh inning when he had to.
Yeah, he's just been fun to watch. It's been, that's been a tough opponent for him, and I just think to watch a young player, a young pitcher grow that he has grown here from a year ago until the position he is in now. I mean, they have just an embarrassment of riches with these young pitchers, but he just has. He has that, maybe it's a Texas thing. I don't know. It's just that DNA of just like, I am just going to go out and I'm going to try to shove it down your ass. I really shove it down your throat, I guess is the better term. But he just has this willingness, this fight in him that he doesn't want to give in. And it's kind of that Texas culture with him. And it was great to see him have that performance that he did in that start against Houston because he's got so many family and friends there. First time his grandfather, who's in the 84-85, has watched him pitch in person at the major league level. And he just, to follow up what was a great first season with what he's done this year, it was just been fun to watch all season long.
Yeah, it was a big game. And like you said, the Astros had their way with him a little bit. I mean, his last two turns this year were better, but in Houston, he's really struggled.
Yeah.
And it helps when Alvarez doesn't play.
Sure.
But that doesn't discredit what he did. He still had to deal with Tucker and the rest of that lineup. And, he's got a great makeup. There's a certain kind of ease to what he does. There's a certain quiet confidence in what he does. Mm-hmm. And yet he's a real practical thinker about who he is and what he needs to be successful. And he's made as many refinements as Logan Gilbert made in 1 year. They're different pitchers. Gilbert wants to he's the kitchen sink. He wants to throw everything but his fastball, where what I like about Bryce Miller is even though he develops these other pitches, he still knows the calling card is the fastball, and fastball command rules. And in some respects, that makes him a better pitcher than Logan Gilbert. Logan's got long and lanky, and he's way down the rubber, and the ball gets on you, and he's got a little bit more velo, and he's having a huge year. Don't discredit that for a second. But I think in the long run, if you continue to command your fastball like Bryce Miller has, and if you're Logan Gilbert and you continue to pitch like you're, 38 years old and you don't have a fastball, then you're going to have problems. He pitches like Chris Bosio, except he throws 98. And again, don't misconstrue.
Sure.
Logan Gilbert is a hard working, smart guy that's having a huge year. And of course, he toes the rubber tonight, and I expect big things from him.
Do you you expect big things from it? It will be another night where they can prevent Houston from clinching the AL West. I think most of us they obviously still have a shot to get into the postseason. Most of us feel that the division is over, but no one they're competitors. You played 13 years in the big leagues. You guys are as competitive. That 1% of athlete, whether it's baseball, football, NBA, whatever it is, you're the 1%ers of just competitiveness. You don't want to see them celebrate in front of you. You don't see them running on their field and celebrating what is their fourth or fifth straight division title. I can't even remember how many it is in a row for them. So they have that in. They don't want to see that. Can they prevent it? And what hopes and shots do you give them that they can sneak into this thing?
They got a puncher's chance. They show up with the best pitching and pretty much in the card every night. Mm-hmm. Now, you could argue that Flamber Valdez is the opponent, and he's been pitching. He's a great pitcher, and he's in some kind of a run the last 2 months. He's pitched lights out. But he has not pitched very well against the Mariners here, north of 5 and scattery control when he faced the Mariners 3 times this year. And the Mariners pasted 2 losses on him. So Logan Gilbert is the best pitcher in this game tonight. And he's without Alvarez in the lineup, as long as he makes good pitches to Tucker, he's going to have his way with those right-hand hitters. I think he's going to pitch great. I think he's going to overwhelm them. The only problem is Gilbert's not as efficient as Miller. Why? We talked about it. Fastball command. If you have to throw the kitchen sink every time, that's when your pitch count comes up. You watched Hunter Brown last night, 98 with a doo-dog breaking ball, but he's got to throw 6 pitches, right? And so where does he end up with 103 pitches after 6? And then he leaves, and then we take advantage of the cannon fodder and post 6 runs. But you know what? That's the name of the game. The Mariners are doing a much better job of making people pitch. It's like somebody came in and said, hey, today's lesson. And they were like, oh, yeah, no, this is Dan Wilson. Oh, this is Edgar Martinez. Maybe we should pay attention now. Maybe we should listen. Oh, we should use the big part of the field. Oh, we should think about having a 2-strike approach. I've never heard anything like that. Where does that come from? That's something I've never heard of. But what's happened? They've had a better 2-strike approach. They've been using the big part of the field. They're moving runners. They're hitting sac flies. They're a better scoring team. They're one of the better scoring teams in the month of September. Now, granted, Robles has been an instigator and an enforcer and made a lot of things happen. And Julio's kind of pulled himself out of whatever he was in for most of the year. I don't know that necessarily that, Edgar may be the hitting whisperer. He could be. And he may be whispering to Julio. And maybe Julio has learned something in a way from Edgar. I hope so. And things have obviously dramatically changed. And we took big advantage. What I'm getting to the point is it would be nice if Gilbert could be a little bit more efficient and pitch a little bit deeper in the game, because the weak point for this ball club right now is the bullpen. That's where they're weak. Munoz is great, but getting from the starter to Munoz is a whole different kettle of fish.
Am I off on this? It seems like since Wilson has taken over here lately that they have allowed these guys to go a little longer. Yeah,
they have, and in some points it's kind of burned them because they've given up some home runs. The home run ball in the bullpen, they're 4th in giving up home run balls after the All-Star break, this bullpen. And the starters have been singed late in games, and it's because we talked about it. These guys were trained to throw 80, 90 pitches. These guys are trained to throw 6. Once they get past 6, it's like unfound territory. It's Columbus. He's getting close to the edge of the earth. Is he going to fall off? Are the serpents going to eat him? Or is he going to actually land in the West Indies, not the East Indies? But that's a rounding error, big deal. But these are things that our pitchers haven't learned. Yeah. They haven't learned how to pitch in that part of the ball game. And I thought, Dan Wilson, he looked at the game with his educated eyes, not from the script, and said, no, Bryce Miller is my guy. 2 hits. Bryce Miller's my guy. Second and third, Bryce Miller's my guy. He's got to get 2 outs. Now we got Pena, who's an all-or-nothing fastball hitter. Bryce Miller's my guy. That was the right move.
Yeah.
Go to the best part. Bryce Miller is the best option you have, unless Andres Munoz is going to come in that spot. Okay.
Yeah.
So in a roundabout way, it'd be nice to see Logan Gilbert have some efficiency, get a little deeper in the game. I mean, yes, I think Dan Wilson will want to lean on Gilbert and try to get him into the 7th and maybe the 8th inning. That would be fantastic.
The speaking of Julio, since he came back August 11th, and I'll pull up what he's done in September. Since he's come back, He's got a batting average of 304. He's slugging 503. He's putting, I'll bore you with all the numbers. He's putting up the numbers that you thought he'd have in the beginning of the season. He's got an OPS of 863. Here, my question to you, and I asked this to Jim Duquette on Monday, so I'll kind of ask the same question in a way. What would you advise him to do to have the production that he has had late in the seasons, because this is a trend for him where he puts up good numbers in August and September? What could he maybe work on or try to where when we start the season, he's kind of starts off this way, where it's not such a slow starter?
Well, I think he's learning. Obviously, he's a young player that we anointed with a giant contract, and he was the best player on the planet. And that's a tough place to sort of continue your career from. All that being said, I think he wants to be a great player, and I think he's determined to be that player. I think he's a little fundamentally flawed, and better pitching can take advantage of him because we've talked about it. He's got a forward press. He's got a long swing. And yes, it generates a lot of power right now, but he's still advantaging the lesser of the league. When he gets to the middle, when we're chasing the starter and that next group of pitching comes in, that's when he ropes. He ropes bad sliders. He ropes bad changeups. He ropes when he knows the fastball's coming. And people that he's facing aren't pitching him in like they did when he saw the better teams in the first half. Now, Hunter Brown handled him last night. But then once they brought in the second tier, because he didn't see, Bobby Abreu and Abreu and Hader and the other guy, he didn't see those guys last night. He may see them tonight. Those guys are a little different cut. But yes, I would say it would be nice for him to be on time. It would be nice for him to get a little bit quicker to the ball. I know that this is just not that mysterious that he's long to the ball. But I mean, he's been so successful doing it his way that, and in his head, it's all a matter of him getting hot or just getting on time or just getting it going, right? That's just how he thinks about it because he's a great player. Now, maybe there's been some small things that Edgar's been able to tell him about getting a good ball to hit, being on time. And he's doing better. He's getting a better ball to hit, and he's on time. What I've always liked about him is I always thought he had kind of that Miguel Cabrera. He had all that power to right center, and he was going to be able to stay on pitches, right? And those are the guys, the Ramirez's and the Cabreras, those guys that can hit the ball to right center forever. They're the hardest guys to face because they get their money, which is when you make good pitches away, they get base hits, but they also slug going that way. They're the worst nightmare of all. Edgar Martinez was that kind of hitter, but Edgar could also hit the ball in. He could handle pitches. And it's another level for Julio to get to. His saving grace before he hurt his ankle, and it's still a saving grace, is the 2-hopper to short to knock, man. He gets knocks because he can run, and that helps his batting average. But his slugging percentage, not that it's all about slugging, because slugging means doubles and triples. He's got to be a better slugger.
But
for this team, he's got to be a better slugger. He's got to knock down the strikeouts. The answer is I don't know the answer.
But hold on,
you got to come to spring training and refine your approach.
Okay,
there you go. But
that's what I'm asking you, though. That's what he has a long swing in the beginning of the season. He has a long swing at the end of the season. I'm asking you, why does it work at the end and doesn't work in the beginning?
I don't know. I think some of it's scheduling, some of it's catching bad pitching. I don't know. Some of it's the second half pitchers tire.
Okay.
I don't know. He had a great August last year. What I saw, this is what I saw. When I saw him as a rookie, I thought he was shorter to the ball. He handled the fastball in. I saw him on a 3-2 pitch, hit a 98-mile-an-hour fastball for a 3-run homer, a grand slam in Texas his rookie year. And he was quick to the ball, man. And he's not so quick anymore. Plus, he was chasing everywhere. It's the universe of pitches. I'll swing at anything. And you know what? Smart pitchers understand that. So I would say this. He has to get on time, and he has to get a better ball to hit. It would be nice for him to figure out how to be a little quicker to the ball. Okay. But those are things that can happen. I think the analytics are great, and there's a lot to learn about angles and how do you get to the ball and all that stuff, and lots of video. But at the end of the day, having someone that he respects, one voice that can tell him little things to get him right, and have a little bit of discipline to what he's doing, not just let him off the hook. Say, hey, that wasn't as good. You need to be here. That's where you weren't. Not so much all the analytics, please. And talk a little bit more about what's practical. Edgar was the best at being able to break the game down because he was not a superstar athlete. He was not a guy that had all the tools. He made himself a great player with all the little things. Does that mean that Julio Rodriguez is going to be like that? No, he's super talented. But he could learn a little bit from Edgar, and that could be the difference. I hope that Edgar's around him more.
I agree. Yeah, I said this the other day. I think that the organization needs to do whatever they can to entice Edgar to stay around. It doesn't sound like he wants to do it full time, but
right.
Boy, the difference that he hasn't made, at least to Julio, I just think you can see it. And I think the way that Julio's talked about it. And then on Julio's side, I would say this. I'm sure that you are really good friends with the guy in Florida that you flew up there, and I'm sure he's very good. I would say this. I would ask Julio, who do you think knows more about hitting? The guy in Florida or Edgar Martinez? And then he knows what the answer is. And I would just spend all off season, fly Edgar down, come up here and visit. It's lovely here in the winter, Julio, if you've never been.
It is. It's great.
It's 40. It's dark by 3:50. You'll love it. You'll love it here. And I would just spend an off season with him. And that's what if we're advising, you and me are on the Julio crisis team. We're advising him to drop the guy in Florida and just have Edgar show you everything he knows in the offseason.
Yeah, it sounds like a plan. I don't know whether it's practical, but Edgar's obviously had some influence on him. It's too obvious to not notice that, right? He's going to have people around him that are trying to help him. He's got a huge probably payroll of people that cover everything from his dry cleaning to what he eats every day.
It's just like you.
All the stuff.
You have
like
the
me.
same thing. Don't let
don't
fool anyone. Same deal.
Okay.
Same deal for you. Hey, before you go, and we'll do another couple of these depending how the season goes.
Yeah.
I know you're excited to get rid of me. I'm not excited to get rid of you, but
we can keep going.
I wanted to ask you this. You played 13 years. The first 5 years of your career, you spent with the Oakland Athletics. They are going to play their final series homestand starting tonight in Oakland. The owner came out with a letter yesterday that was tone deaf. Playing there, what that organization means to you, what that logo means to you, what it meant to you to be an Oakland Athletic.
Means a lot. Sad to see it go away. I know everybody, loves to make fun of the Oakland Coliseum. And when I played there in the 80s, it wasn't a dump. And we had a lot of good teams and a lot of great players. And they're the one team that took a chance on a big left-hander that played mostly basketball that maybe could pitch. That was a big chance they took on me, and I'm grateful. And I have a lot of fond memories. I mean, I played with a lot of great players there. Ricky Henderson, Don Sutton, Dave Kingman, Dwayne Murphy, Mike Davis, Mickey Tettleton. Even Reggie Jackson was there for a minute. Even Joe Morgan was there for a minute. tremendous players. And of course, the Bash brothers came along right about the time I was leaving, and Canseco and McGuire. They took off and became a championship team. But that's all. It's all part of my story, and I have lasting memories of fond times at Oakland and wearing the green and gold. And we were multi-uniforms before they became popular. When I joined the team in '83, we had a yellow top, a green top. We had gray on gray on the road. We had those colored tops on the road. And then we had a white uniform we wore on the weekends that was sort of like an old English D kind of style uniform that was like Detroit. So we were way ahead of the curve when it comes to uniforms, the white shoes and the yellow sanitaries. Oh, yeah. There's some cool schemes. And if you think back to the teams prior to that, Billy Ball, then you go back into the 70s, with Reggie Jackson and Tennis and Rudy and Campaneris and Catfish Hunter. And I mean, it's a great story, and it's sad to see it go away. It's much like, our Sonics, which are guests coming back, green and gold, and you know what? It's failed ownership for sure. It's a city that probably didn't have the muscle, but there should have been a way, and baseball didn't help them. Baseball said, oh yeah, that's right. You can't go to San Jose. This is quite a while ago, because that's the Giants' territory. Now, wait a minute. San Jose's further away from San Francisco than Oakland is. So don't give me that. Everything that they tried didn't work. And this ownership group, it's appalling to see what they're doing.
Well said. I'm sorry for you and everybody, all your teammates and everyone. And I'm sorry for baseball. It's what I grew up with, was the Oakland A's, and then of course and then their association with Tacoma. You kind of felt like you knew that team with the Tigers, and before the Rainiers.
I was a Tiger.
Yeah, it's just sad all the way around.
Yeah.
All right, you're the best. We'll continue this for a little bit longer. Hopefully the Mariners sneak in. That would be great. Bill Krueger.
Keep the faith. One more game tonight, they win, and just keep putting the pressure on these teams that don't seem to want it. So let's see what happens.
No one wants it. Bill Krueger every Tuesday with us, brought to you by Rise Above Foundation. In case you miss it, up on YouTube. You can listen to it, Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast. Of course, up at pucksports.com.